Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes, and thank you all for being here. I want to acknowledge the many people standing here for today's announcement, which I think really highlights how important the things that we're going to be talking about today are. Let me start with acknowledging the elected officials with us today. Alderman Gil Villegas, Chairman of the Economic Development Committee, and Alderman David Moore. Both of these individuals are fierce advocates for ensuring that minority businesses get the resources and opportunities they need to thrive. So thank you both, gentlemen, for being here today and for your hard work and advocacy every day. I also want to welcome local business owners like Nosa Iha-Wayman, Boa Construction, and business group leaders like Amelia Domenko of the Women's Business Development Center, Charles Smith of the Business Leadership Council, and Jorge Perez of HICIA, the Hispanic American Construction Industry Association. Thank you all for being here. I also have to acknowledge and give thanks to three other people who are with us today and were instrumental in making today's announcements possible. Our Chief Financial Officer, Jenny Wong Bennett, Comptroller Reshma Soni, and Chief Procurement Officer, Shannon Andrews. We're here today to proudly announce three new initiatives the City of Chicago is putting in place to further support our small, minority, and women-owned businesses known as our MBEs and WBEs. The change we need and the change we want doesn't just happen. We must be intentional to make it happen. And while city government cannot solve all problems, and certainly not without partnerships from the private and philanthropic sectors, as we have seen time and again through the pandemic, our city government plays a central role in the success of our local businesses and our economy, in crafting policies on how we conduct business, but also in how we as a city government directly work with our many vendors and contract partners, which is what today's announcements are all about. At its core, what we're announcing today will help level the playing field for both current and future businesses that do business with the City of Chicago. And in so doing, better support our communities and better serve our residents and businesses who rely upon city services every single day. And just the lineup of speakers we have here really represents the importance that this moment holds. First, I'm happy to announce that we're establishing the new City of Chicago Vendor Impact Fund. This is designed to combat longstanding inequities and give disadvantaged firms better access to affordable financing, with preferences given to those businesses located in the city and with more than half of their employees also located in the city, particularly those located in disadvantaged areas. I want to give a special thanks to both the Community Reinvestment Fund and Goldman Sachs, who contributed a combined $24 million in seed funding for this fund. I also want to acknowledge our CFO, Jenny Wong Bennett, who worked tirelessly to bring these resources to the table. This partnership epitomizes the kind of dynamic and creative public-private community partnership that we have been building since I entered office almost 2 years ago. So this is an important thing, a $24 million fund. Second, we're announcing today is the creation of a prompt pay working group, which will help ensure that city vendors are paid in an efficient and timely manner. Now, stretching back to 2005, my days as the interim first procurement deputy director, one of the consistent themes that I heard over and over again from small businesses was how bad the city was at payment, slow pay. And unfortunately, that reputation and reality is still with us today, now almost 15, 16 years later. And I aim to end that problem. Anyone who's worked for themselves can tell you the endless struggles and frustrations of getting paid and getting paid on time. And that frustration turns into real stress when the payment you're waiting for is the same payment you're counting on to pay other bills and expenses. No small or medium-sized business can afford to carry a debt 60, 90, or longer when they have to continue meeting payroll and buying materials to get an existing job done. The city's mantra must be, When you deliver the work on time, it's only right that you get paid on time. Simple as that. So frankly, we need to do a better job, and establishing this priority will help us do that. That's why the Prompt Pay Working Group will be working with key infrastructure departments to build on the critical work already underway, applying transparent, common sense measures like tracking contracts through the payment process, creating standardized city policies to address processing time, and numerous other actions to ensure that no one who does business with the city will ever have to wait longer than they need to get paid by the city of Chicago. We need to be about the business of putting money back into the hands of our small and medium-sized businesses. It's good for them and it's good for us, so that businesses don't avoid doing business with the city of Chicago because of slow pay issues. Finally, I'm proud to announce that I will be signing an executive order today to enhance reporting measures to bring more transparency around how diverse firms are being utilized both on city and non-city contracts. The order will require prime contractors on the front end of work to tell us when in the life of a contract a minority or women-owned business will actually be utilized. And then, and this is important, will further require regular quarterly reporting on that utilization so that the Department of Procurement Services can track during the life of the contract whether or not the prime contractors are living up to their contractual obligations around utilization. This new requirement that spans all city contracting across all departments will be an important tool in ensuring that there is actual utilization of minority and women-owned businesses by prime contractors. I mean to end the days where a contractor fails to give these small businesses actual work and then pay some small amount of liquidated damages at the end of a contract. Another important element of the executive order requires for the first time that certain businesses who have contracts with the city must now provide annual reports on their supplier diversity efforts on non-city procurements. Why is this important? Here's why. We saw in the wake of the horrific murder of George Floyd and the righteous civic uprising that followed, companies of all sizes affirmed a set of values around eliminating systemic racism and expanding opportunities for disinvested communities. That's great. But what we are now saying is prove it. With this new executive order, certain companies that do business with the city will be required to provide annual updates on minority and women-owned and disadvantaged businesses outside of their city contracts. Let me say that again. They will be required to provide updates on how they are actually doing business with women and minority and disadvantaged businesses outside of their city contracts. This transparency requirement will give us, for the first time, a glimpse into who we are doing business with and whether they share our values around building an equitable and inclusive economy. In sum, we want companies to go beyond statements and put their money where their mouth is. Now, folks, you know this, but it bears repeating. From the beginning of my administration, we have been about building wealth in historically disadvantaged people and communities. These three initiatives today build on the many actions we have already taken to date to support our small and medium-sized businesses, particularly those that have been historically left out and left behind. Leveraging the vast power of city government to expand opportunity. Unlock the talent that we have right here at home and help our city become more equitable, more inclusive, and more successful. This has to be an intentional focus as we see ourselves coming out of the pandemic and focusing on recovery. If we do these things and more and continue to be intentional about building wealth and communities, we will have an historic recovery across all of our neighborhoods that sees a new Chicago Renaissance coming to fruition. And I'm excited about being and leading this effort. Now I'm going to welcome Nosa to the podium to share a few words with us. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to speak here today. I am Nelsa Ehirama. I sit on the Affirmative Action Board for Mayor Lightfoot. I'm also President and CEO of Boa Construction. We're a general contractor and construction management firm based here in Chicago. I started this company with 3 people. In less than 10 years, we've grown to over 60 employees, and we're working in states across the country. But honestly, I stand on the shoulders of giants that have come before me and paved the way for businesses like mine. We've also been fortunate to work with great partners and clients in this city. When people think about small businesses, what do you think about? Do you think about me? Do you think about other successful small businesses that look like me? Do you think about the impact that I and other small businesses that look like me hired other people of color in our communities? Excuse me. Well, the mayor does. She's constantly thinking about equity. She understands what equity represents. It doesn't happen without real change. Change isn't easy. And today I have to commend our mayor for her leadership to push this executive order forward. As a city, when we come together and demand change, we the people can make this a more diverse Chicago. Small businesses are a lifeblood of the city. It's me and others like myself that keep this city moving. Minority businesses are not looking for handouts. We're not looking for donations. We're looking for real opportunities. We're looking for opportunities to compete in an environment that's fair and equitable. We're not talking about the equity you wear on the t-shirts. We're not talking about the ones you put on signage. We're talking about real equity, real opportunities to create other businesses like BOA in our communities. Give you a real life example, right? Imagine running a race against someone that's been running and competing for 200 years. They have a 200-year head start. How do you win? How do you compete? Well, the mayor's executive order is helping us come together and go beyond the old ways of doing business and challenging ourselves to create real opportunities for businesses like myself. Because it's about time for us to get real opportunities to compete. And I want to repeat something. We're not looking for handouts. Many of us have real viable businesses and have put a lot on the line to start our businesses. All we're looking for is the opportunity to compete. And with this executive order, it allows us to do that. Thank you, Mayor, for what you're doing. Alderman Moore, Alderman Villegas, and other members of City Council, thank you, and appreciate the opportunity to speak.
And now we'll hear from Amelia Domenko. Amelia.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, for including our voice today. The voice of tens of thousands of women and minority business owners that we serve for this significant announcement that will create a more level playing field, equal access, and thus greater opportunity for minority and women-owned businesses to conduct profitable business with this great city. I'm Amelia Domenko, President and CEO of the Women's Business Development Center, a 35-year-old economic development organization serving entrepreneurs with a laser focus on women and minority-owned businesses, primarily in underserved communities. I think with some level of authority, having spent 10 years at the Women's Business Development Center and 30 years before that at a major Chicago commercial bank, I can speak to the challenges that business owners face competing for contracts, attracting capital to fuel those contracts, and pursuing payments for their completed work. The mayor's executive order, the Vendor Impact Fund, and the very important prompt payment initiative are major steps that will move us forward and remove challenges and barriers that minority and women business owners face more than most. The executive order will increase transparency, reporting, and accountability on awarded contracts to make promises, commitments, and to create accountability for unmet commitments. Once a contract is won, though, the next challenge to overcome is accessing the capital to fuel that contract. It's never easy, but particularly difficult for women and minorities. The Vendor Impact Fund has two major components that will lessen the challenge. One, lower interest, longer maturities, and friendlier terms. And two, the technical assistance to support the business owner in pursuing the debt capital. Profitable and competitive awards, however, can become unprofitable and devastating to a business owner if payments are not received on a prompt basis. We commend the Mayor's Office for its critically important prompt payment initiative, which started in August of 2020, and we very much look forward to hearing the results of this work in mid-year 2021 to streamline and improve the payment process. With much gratitude, we thank the Mayor and her entire administration for their leadership on eliminating barriers and challenges that inhibit the growth of minority and women-owned businesses that contribute so much to our communities, to our neighborhoods, and very importantly, to our families. Thank you.
And next up is Charles Smith.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Charles Smith. I currently serve as the chair of the Business Leadership Council and the CEO of CS Insurance Strategies. First, I'd like to thank Mayor Lightfoot. I'd like to thank CFO Jenny Wong Bennett. I'd like to thank Chief Procurement Officer Shannon Andrews. I'd like to thank Alderman Villegas, Alderman Moore, the many staff members, the many community organizers, as well as the advocacy groups that have constantly pushed for equity in the city that has been historically challenged in these areas. Businesses in our city should reflect the communities and the population of our city. The work that the city of Chicago does to provide this equity and opportunities to these organizations is important to the lifeblood of our neighborhoods. I've been born and raised in Chicago my entire life. I love this city. But at the same time, I do recognize its challenges as a business owner and the things that we need to do to specifically change business practices at the city, and not just the city, but corporations and institutions as well. This executive order helps address issues of accountability and barriers to entry into doing business with the city. Finding ways to be more inclusive makes Chicago a better city overall. In my lifetime, I am not sure that I've seen this type of focus on Black and minority businesses in the city, and I'm proud to be here today to support that. To the end, I do want to thank you again, Mayor Lightfoot, for your leadership, but it can't be just the city alone. It has to be the corporate community, the institutions, and Chicago as a whole to help us get out of these challenging times. Once again, thank you.
Next up is Jorge Perez from ICEA.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jorge Perez, and I'm the Executive Director of HACIA. That's the Hispanic American Construction Industry Association. I want to thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, for inviting me to come and speak this morning, or this afternoon. I also want to recognize Chairman Villegas and Alderman Moore as well for your leadership. Our organization for the last 41 years has worked pretty diligently to ensure that our members are equitably involved in many of the design and construction projects throughout Chicago and really throughout the state. And we have a wonderful history of being involved in many projects, but it's always been a challenge for, as my colleagues have said, in terms of getting paid, getting involved, looking at other opportunities, what opportunities can further grow, and others that we can enter. When we came out of the last recession, there wasn't much in terms of planned public investment. In fact, there was very little. And our organization, what we decided to do is listen to our members and look at what types of industries or sectors in the marketplace have our members historically never been involved in. And the assessment was pretty simple to do because it came down to what's being discussed today. Who pays quicker, who has planned investment, and who pays quicker. And in any business, cash flow is you live or die by it. And it's very simple. And so what we ended up doing is heading off on a long journey of passing bills at the General Assembly to do what an executive order is doing today. And it took many years for us to do this, but it opened up opportunities, and they were signed. It opened up opportunities for our members and other members of the minority women business community to compete in the utility sector in Illinois, and to compete in the private university sector, and compete in hospital and healthcare centers. And we all know that there's quite a bit of investment that's going to be planned there as well going forward. And also with the Class 1 railroads, and also with any corporation that receives EDGE tax credits. And all those are marketplaces that our members historically have never been involved in. If you're a small contractor or a small architectural firm, you probably do some work in the residential marketplace, the remodeling marketplace, and slowly you can gain some traction there and you can grow. And if you really want to grow, it's in the public sector where your opportunities really lie. But unfortunately, at that point, you actually have to have quite a bit lined up properly for you to properly compete. And many of our members, and Nosa mentioned as well, they bet the house every single day. Every single day they're there and they're risking it. And that's the entrepreneurial spirit. It's wonderful, but it's very risky. At HACIA, we ensure our mission by doing three things: providing a membership platform so folks can do business, get to know each other, do a lot of advocacy, and that's either through public engagement, public action, legislation, and advocacy with relationships. Because many of our members go at it alone, and you need an advocate, and you look at other ways to improve the industry performance, opportunities for you to perform better. And we provide a lot of services. We do quite a bit in terms of capacity building for our firms. We can advocate very hard on one end, but if we don't have members that have the capacity to compete and be a subcontractor or work their way up to be a prime contractor, then it really is for naught. So through HACIA U, we provide a lot of those opportunities. We've had over probably 1,200 firms that have gone through it in the last 12 years. And we also have opportunities for folks who want to enter the construction industry in a pre-apprenticeship program. But the announcement for this afternoon is really, really phenomenal. From the standpoint of providing a mechanism for folks to get paid quicker is a combination that really needs to be championed and applauded. The fact that the mayor is going out and asking vendors to the city to report their diversity spend is really consistent with what we've envisioned our work to do at HACIA, which we also did, I must mention, with our colleagues at the Federation of Women Contractors. Very difficult to do, and at the very beginning, the utilities hummed and hawed. They were working weren't sure how to approach it all, but the intent of that, and I believe the intent of this, is exactly what is needed. It's change. It's change in this industry that for so long has really overlooked our community, overlooked other minority women businesses as well. But the utilities then started to change their game. They started to change their culture. And that is a significant change there. To the extent now, and to their credit, they've invested, I'll say the utilities, $2.5 billion over the last 10 years. But to their credit, they've changed their cultures inside their corporations. And the same is going to happen, I believe, as a result of this executive order. And that's significant change which will reverberate for many years to come. So again, on behalf of our board of directors at HACIA, my name is Jorge Perez. Thank you very much.
I think next up is Alderman Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm David Moore, Alderman of the 17th Ward and Vice Chair of Committee on Contract Oversight and Equity, where Alderman Austin, who is our chairman, could not be here today. First of all, I wasn't expecting to say anything, so I don't have any fancy speech. I just was excited about what this mayor was doing and what this administration was doing, that I wanted to just stand here. And I walked in the room and they said, here's to run the show. you have to say something. And I don't like saying nothing. I'm not like some people who talk just to have something to say. I only like to talk when I have to say something. And so, in this case, I do. I'm going to start with these words. Shine the light. Bring in the light. When I ran for office, I used a slogan, and people think we just use slogans. Some people do use slogans to find it because it sounds nice. I said, get more for your vote. And that meant for my constituents that I'm going to do everything that I can. You're going to get more out of me than you got out of anyone. This mayor, she ran on shine the light, bring in the light. It wasn't something to just a slogan. She's living it. She's shining the light on the injustices. She's shining the light on these inequities. And then she's going to bring in the light, which she's doing by shining the light on these, into our communities that need it the most. Because where there's been darkness, she's bringing in that light. For me, real simple. Everybody told you what it's about. But for those people who need sometimes simplified, 1, 2, 3, vendor impact fund, get you money. 2, get you access to business, so make sure these businesses are hiring and contracting. And then when you get that business, 3, making sure that they are paying you. It is just that simple. And I appreciate this mayor for doing that. Another thing for me, sometimes I don't think she's listening. And then I turn around, not only is she's listening, she's moving on it. She's moving on it. Then I have to wake myself up and say, 2 years. I know because of COVID, because of everything going on, uprisings. Seems like we've been in this, she's been mayor for 5 years. Hasn't even been 2 years yet. That's true. And already invest Southwest in the neighborhood. Something I call a Marshall Plan. That's the Marshall Plan for the Chicago in less than 2 years, because it's not even full 2 years yet. And then these executive orders that she's presenting today in less than 2 years. Somebody just said, and I think it was Charles, and he said, and I had to holler back there, and he had not seen anything like this in this city. And I said, no, you haven't, because I hadn't seen it, and I've been involved for years, way before I was alderman. Mayor, thank you so much for what you're doing here and shining the light and bringing in the light. And so I'm happy because I have my colleague here, Alderman Gil Villegas. When we were freshman aldermen, we came in and co-sponsored an ordinance on diversity and inclusion, and we asked for equity officers. That's how we got Marcus, really. And we were excited about that. And so here we are, full circle, brother. Still standing strong, still fighting, and making sure that happened. But we have someone here that's listening to us. So thank you, Mayor. And without further ado, I bring on my colleague, the chairman of the Economic and Capital Development Committee, Chairman Gil Villegas.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. That was a battle. Times have changed because this administration really wants to partner with the City Council, especially when it comes to diversity. My first term, I introduced and got past the MBE goal, raising it from 24-4 to 26-6. I really shot for 30-10, but I can compromise because I know that this is a moving target. We're going to continue to challenge folks that want to do business with the city, because we want to see contractors that are a reflection of the city of Chicago. This Chicago is approximately a third. And I try to make it easier for anybody seeking business with the city of Chicago that the folks that you bring on your contract, it better be reflective of the city council. Okay. $30 billion capital bill, $8.7 billion O'Hare, $3.9 billion city council just passed the capital bill. Private development, billions of dollars. Congress just passed the American Rescue Plan, which means that following suit will probably be a capital bill. All of these entities are going to have requirements for minority women businesses. And so we need to make sure that as we're bringing forward the opportunities, that we're really challenging the folks that want to do business with us, that their team is reflective of the city. Now, the mayor has these 3 initiatives, and I applaud her for that, because, again, this administration is focused on diversity. And I want to help make sure that we are bringing along firms that look like this floor, this audience here. one of the other initiatives that I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about is about making sure that as we're getting companies to a level where they have the capacity, that we're not graduating them out.
That's right.
Because just when we got them there in a position where they're going to bring up the other subs, we say, hey, you know what, you're too big. You have to get out of the program. So I want to work with the mayor on that, because that's something that's great for the city, because the more contractors that are doing work for the city, the more competition there is, right. Which means that everyone has to sharpen their pencils just a little bit more, which means the taxpayers win. So this is a great day, a great initiative. I'm so proud that the mayor is talking M and WBE opportunities, because we need to make sure that we're setting forward policies, whether it's through legislation or through executive order, to really challenge the folks that want to do business with the city. So again, I applaud the mayor, and I applaud my colleague David Moore, who has been a partner in making sure that on a black and brown front, we're making sure our communities are participating. So thank you.
Thank you. To take your questions.
Yes, hi, Mayor. So,
How are you?
is this on? I'm not the pool, but I do have a bunch of topics, if that's all right, Jordan, including some stuff on topic.
Why don't we start with on topic first, and then we can go to the.
Sure, and I'll move quickly, because my colleagues in the press corps talked about rewarding people for actually showing up to the news conference now that these are open again. But first of all, on this subject, what enforcement action can you take if you find that a vendor or someone you're doing business with is not meeting your standards in terms of minority participation in hiring? What can you do?
Well, first of all, every contract has very specific requirements built into it, but the challenge is getting the data and getting it in a timely fashion so that we can actually take enforcement action. Every contract that's let that has goals on it for MBE, WB participation, the contractor signs a commitment regarding utilization. What the one part of the executive order does is requires them to tell us on the front end, when are you going to be using Lightfoot landscaping? And so then the procurement compliance folks can keep track of when that utilization is happening. And if you say you're going to be using a company in, say, the third stage of a contract, the third stage comes and that person isn't there, then the procurement department is going to be armed with information that they can go to the prime contractor and say, what happened? As it stands right now, because there isn't that kind of reporting mechanism as a contract is going on, things get settled up at the end of the contract. well, by then it's too late. And yes, of course, we have the liquidated damages provision, but what we need to be about is building wealth. So if a contractor doesn't get a job, that's their wealth that's not being built, that's employees that aren't getting hired, and that's experience that's not happening so that they can build their resume to be put in a position to get the next contract. You know, it's fine if the city gets liquidated damages, but that's not the point. We want businesses to be able to get opportunities and to thrive, and that's what that part of the executive order, I think, really makes a difference. It's about collecting the data and giving us a tool so we can make sure that prime contractors are living up to their obligations.
Goldman Sachs and the Community Reinvestment Fund put $24 million into this. What does Goldman get out of this?
Well, I think, one, Goldman has made a commitment that they are going to do better in making sure that they're investing in disadvantaged businesses. So I think it's primarily living up to their financial commitment. It's obviously building relationships with businesses that they don't necessarily do business with. But really, the question is, what do the small businesses get out of it? And one of the things, and you heard this, I think, theme through the comments that others made, one of the biggest challenges that small and medium-sized businesses, particularly businesses of color, women-owned businesses, is access to capital. This fills a gap that isn't going to be filled by PPP and some of the other federal programs, really putting money into those businesses that are going to need it most to be able to recover because they've been the hardest hit.
Can we go off topic?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the two I've gotten through the pool.
Sure, go for it.
You guys? Okay, great.
Okay, go ahead.
Mayor, from NBC and Bond Buyer, they're curious how you plan to spend the federal stimulus funds that we're getting through the American Rescue Plan.
Well, let's get the money first. That's where we start. Look, we're excited that the House has passed the American Recovery Act. My understanding is that the President is going to sign it in a ceremony on Friday. The devil's going to be in the details. And there were a lot of changes that were made, particularly in the Senate with amendments. We're still trying to sort that out. It's, I think, a 700-page document. The other thing that's going to be important, and we know this from what happened with the CARES Act, is the Treasury guidance. And my expectation is that the money is going to come like the CARES Act came, through specific grants that have specific requirements on how the money can be spent. So I want to disabuse people out there and my colleagues in City Council. This is not $1.9 trillion of a slush fund that we can use every way that we can, but we've got to be smart about doing it. I'm hearing a lot from people who've been around city government for a while, what didn't go right and what did go right following some stimulus that came to the city after the 2008-2009 economic crisis. We want to be smarter about the way in which we utilize this money and make sure that we're actually, again, making catalytic investments that are going to lift us up into a full recovery. So we'll know more once we get the Treasury guidance, but we're going to be starting right away working with members of the City Council to give them the information that we need and start the dialogue on how these funds are going to be utilized.
Okay, great. And then one more from the Daily Line, ABC, and Fox, all asking about big summer events like the Taste of Chicago and the Air and Water Show and what our plans are for those this year.
Well, it's premature for us to say specifically. Obviously, there was discussion today about giving the commissioner of DCASE the ability to enter into contracts for the summer. I've said this many times. I believe that the summer of 2021 is going to look more like 2019 and less like 2020. But we've still got to be driven by and led by what the science and the public health guidance tells us. We're in one of the best positions that we've been in through this years-long pandemic. But that progress could easily step away if we don't continue to be diligent. And we've got to be diligent. We've got to push more vaccine out into communities. We've got to focus on those people who are most vulnerable, both for catching the virus, but also spreading the virus. So we got to stay the course in the work that we know is going to deliver us from this terrible pandemic. But I feel very optimistic about summer activities and gatherings this summer. But more to come.
Real quick, so a follow-up on that, does that mean...
just tell me who you are, sir.
I'm Ross Widener from ABC7.
Okay.
A follow-up on the summer events. Does that mean that the Taste of Chicago, big events like that, should be ready to go? Should Chicagoans get excited about that kind of thing, or is it still a waiting, we'll see when we get there kind of thing?
I think we're more, I think we're cautiously optimistic, but I'm not going to predict specific events taking place over the course of summer. Obviously, for some events, we need to be making some decisions soon, and we've been in discussions with various organizers of some large-scale events for some time now, but they also understand that we've got to be cautious and follow the public health guidance. And let's be honest, just because we say X event is happening doesn't mean that people are going to come in mass unless they're 18 or 19. They'll come. But for the rest of us, we're a little more cautious. It doesn't mean that people are going to come and flock back in mass. But we know so much more about this virus, how it spreads, than we did a year ago. We know in particular about outside events that we can manage these in a safe way that's consistent with public health guidance. So as I said, I think this summer of 2021 looks more like what we normally experience than certainly what last summer did.
Just two quick questions. Forgive me if you covered this yesterday, but there are now folks in certain area codes who can sign up to get a COVID-19
Zip codes.
Zip codes, I should say, yes, to sign up to get a COVID-19 vaccine. What do people need to know about that? Apparently, it doesn't matter how old you are in order to take advantage of it.
Yeah, as we said yesterday, we are moving into what has kind of euphemistically been called 1B+, which means certainly we're going to continue our emphasis on 65 and older, and we're also going to really place a significant emphasis on those individuals of any age, 16 and older, or, that can qualify for the vaccine that have underlying conditions. But we're going to do this in a smart, data-driven way and really work with community-based organizations in those zip codes that we know have been hardest hit by COVID-19. I'm thinking about the Belmont-Cragen neighborhood, and we've been working hand in glove with Alderman Villegas and his team, one of the hardest hit areas in our city, but making significant progress. And I think still the Belmont-Cragen neighborhood now, because of the intentional way that we've pushed vaccine into that neighborhood, leads the city, or certainly within the top 5 of people vaccinated on a percentage basis. So we want to continue our equity-focused, data-driven approach to getting the vaccine to those people who need it the most and who really are most at risk.
My last thing is a group of activists and doctors concerned about the scrap metal facility moving to Hegewisch sent you a letter. When are you going to respond to their letter? And also, where are we in the permit process? I think that the public comment period is over. So when should we expect a decision?
So actually that letter was sent to Dr. Arty, the Commissioner of Public Health. I'm obviously aware of it, and she is working on a response. Look, here, obviously, the permit that RMG is seeking for an additional use beyond what they've been doing for the last 20 years in that community, and I think that's important. A lot of people, euphemistically say, oh, General Iron's moving to the southeast side. Not true. That company has been in that community for several decades doing that work. They've applied for a different use to utilize some technology that they purchased from General Iron. But obviously it raises a lot of concerns given the history on the southeast side and given the challenges that that community has faced regarding environmental justice issues and air quality. Obviously understand that. We have been doing a significant amount of listening to people in that community and others who are advocating on their behalf. As you're well aware, the city passed large recycling rules just last year. This is the first site where those rules apply, and the Department of Public Health is doing, I think, a yeoman's job, not only in soliciting an extraordinary amount of community comment. There are thousands of people that have commented on this application, but also to make sure that we're following our own rules. And so we have to take this step by step. We have to do it in a way that's consistent with the science. The application came in. There were significant challenges with it. We identified those challenges to the applicant. They addressed them, and they've sent it back. And it's that work and analysis that's happening now. Yes, we do have a time limit on it. We'll be speaking more to that, I think, later this week.
Hi, Amy
Hi, how are you?
Jacobson. Good, WIND Radio. I just want to go back to the stimulus package because Chicago is going to get about $1.8 billion in discretionary spending. Are you going to be using that? You still need to raise property taxes, and how much of that money will you need to fill this and next year's budget hole?
So I want to be clear. You said the word discretionary. That's not quite accurate. Obviously, some of the money will come to help us address our revenue loss as a result of COVID-19, but based upon what I know at this point, a lot of that money is coming through specific grant streams that are going to be restricted for the uses. So, for example, it's my expectation that we're going to get money to help with public health through vaccinations and so forth. Monies are going to be coming to address affordable housing, homelessness. So it's money, to be sure, and it's a lot of money, but most of it's coming, I believe, with a lot of strings attached in how we can utilize those funds. My understanding is we'll get a tranche this year and then another tranche next year. But as I said, we've got to be very smart about how we utilize those monies to make sure we have maximum impact as intended by the Congress. If we don't follow those rules, then we put ourselves in a world of hurt.
Because part of the bill, you can't lower taxes for people. That's part of the 700-page bill.
There's my understanding
if you
again.
can freeze and hold the property taxes the way they are.
It's my understanding as the bill as amended by the Senate places specific restrictions around using the monies for related to taxes or pensions. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. This was done in fairly rapid fashion, and I think we've got to give ourselves the opportunity to really understand the nuances of the bill, look for the Treasury guidance, because as you may recall from last spring, we understood what the bill was, and then we got Treasury guidance at a time, felt like it was in tension with the intent of the CARES Act funding. So I want to make sure we have a really good understanding of what the parameters are before we start saying we're spending it on this or we're spending it on that.
Okay.
Last one, Amy.
Last one. I have two. Oh, they're so good.
one.
All right, the last one. A sixth woman has come forward accusing Governor Cuomo of sexual harassment. Is it time now for him to resign? Because I know you addressed this last week, and you mentioned that you were harassed at work. At what stage in your career did that happen, and did you ever file a complaint against your alleged harasser?
So let me take the last part of your question. I dealt with it, and it stopped. I made sure that, look, I was pretty young in my career, and I was in a situation where I was one of very few females, and I was being harassed on a regular basis by someone in full view of others. That's how brazen this individual was. And, when you're young in a workplace, particularly when you're new, you want to try to get along with folks. But it got to a point where it was just downright offensive, and it was inhibiting my ability to do my job. This individual clearly was trying to demoralize me in the workplace. And I think you know me well enough to know I stick up for myself. And so I dealt with it. And it stopped.
And what about Governor Cuomo? Is it time for him to resign?
Think it's the comments that have come out from these women who are not connected to each other, but who are all telling a similar story, are distressing. I support the work that the New York Attorney General is doing to launch an independent investigation of these things, but I've said this before and I'll repeat it. It's important that we not only talk about diversity in the workplace, what's also important in this day and age is that we talk about how the doors of a workplace have been opened up to women. It's not enough for us to walk through the door. If we're walking through the door into institutions that were created by and for men, we live different lives as women in this country. Many of us are the primary caretakers for our children. Our experience as working mothers is different than a lot of the men in a workplace. So I think one of the points of reckoning of Me Too, but also what this latest opportunity gives us, is to really look at our workplace rules and to ask ourselves, are they truly welcoming? Are they truly supportive of people who have different lifestyles or different responsibilities outside of the home? And are we creating environments where people can truly have that work-life balance? I want to make sure that any woman who believes that she was harassed or discriminated against, or for that matter, any person, is able to speak their truth without worrying about retaliation. I'm concerned about some of the allegations that have come out, particularly those where one young woman indicated that she not only did what we would expect, which is to report the conduct immediately, but reported it to 2 women, and the answer was ship her someplace else and give her a different job. Now, look, I'm not naive. You're talking about one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful governor in the country, with a long storied history as a public servant. That's not an easy thing to tackle, that when he is the person who is alleged to have caused the harm to another. But what this tells us is no one can be above the law. And there will be clearly a reckoning. I think it's already happening in the drip by drip that's happening. But I look forward to seeing the results of the New York Attorney General's independent investigation. From my read of the 2 people that she's tapped to lead that investigation, they're not going to cut any corners. They're going to call balls and strikes and follow the facts where they find us. And I think we owe it to the women, but also to the governor, to allow that independent investigation to play itself out.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Thanks, everybody.